Cool. What's the plural of this word? Shout it out. Forums, you say? You're wrong. It's fora. It's Latin. Clearly it's fora. We all know that, don't we? As in, lol, to memes on these fora are wicked. For those of you who said forums, PowerPoint agrees with you. That means that I'm right. So can we read this? It's a little snippet of C. There's a comment. It says copy the data to where they're needed. Do we understand what this does? Taking data from data in and putting it in buffer, it's fairly straightforward. What about if I were to say this? Copy the data whither they're needed. Is this more correct? Linguistically, maybe it is. Is it more readable? Does it communicate better? Is it more readable certainly to non-English speakers, non-native English speakers? I don't know. I get told off for doing things like this, because I am that guy. I get told off for doing things like this. I'm told that I'm a snob, but I'm being a ponce, and this is arcane. You know, words don't declense in English anymore. That's dead. Oh, except of course for when they do declense. Can anybody read this? This is a language called x86. It's particularly difficult for foreigners to learn. The more linguistically astute amongst you might have noticed this is a particular dialect of x86 called SSE. It's spoken up north somewhere. The only thing that gives me any kind of hint as to what this might do is line 3410, because that looks a little bit like some languages I know. It looks a little bit like English. It looks a little bit like C. And sure enough, this whole thing is this one line of C, which to me is quite easy to read. And the guys who were making Unix, they had to speak a language called PDP-11 assembler, and they didn't like it. And they found they couldn't really express what they wanted to express in it very well. So they made C, and then they re-expressed Unix in C, because C was good for expressing the kind of things Unix wanted to do. Systems level kind of programming. So this is some C#. And this is two classes, a producer and a consumer. It's, you know, all very data flow. It's probably parallelizes very well across multiple cores or something. So I have a word source class, and it has this event keyword, and I can say I've got an event, which is word ready, and it'll give you strings when words are ready, and I've got a method I can call, and it'll raise that event and send a new word across. And then my consumer can use this piece of syntax here and attach a handler to it, and the handler will get called. Imagine doing this in C. There'd be void stars everywhere. There'd be casts. It wouldn't be type safe. There'd be word source context type. It would be a complete mess, but the world has moved on. It turns out we do this kind of programming a lot. C# is a modern language. It has the syntax that can express this kind of stuff, because this is what I want to do. So what the fuck? I mean, really, what the fuck? Assert that some enumerable has count equal to 2 and contains some matches where first name equals Jim and contains no matches where last name equals Jones. That's easy to read, isn't it? If I'm reading poetry, this is code. This is a new a la mode style of coding called a Fluent API, which is where you write your code and you're trying to write as close to English as you possibly can, despite the syntax of the language which you are meant to be using. I don't like it. Of course, this isn't the first example of a Fluent API, is it? This is a bit of abuse of the syntax, to be honest. Are there any left shifts there? I don't think so. But it looks like the words are flowing out of my computer. It's pointless. It's not big. It's not clever. I actually did a bit of research to back up a lightning talk, which is probably a first. And the original Fluent APIs were designed to turn something like this, which repeats the word circle quite a lot, into something like this, which apparently is better to read. But of course I've got a static method, and I've got methods that might have side effects, and I've either got mutable state, or each of these has to return a new circle, and then that's very slow, so it needs C#, because I've got my garbage collection, etc., etc., etc. We've solved that problem. We've got syntax. This is a C# initializer list. I could have used a constructor with optional arguments instead. Any of that will do. C# is non-orthogonal, non-symmetrical, non-composable, and that's great, because it allows me to express what I want to express when I want to express it most of the time. It is not big and not clever to do this. Please don't use Fluent APIs, because there's a language that everybody who writes C# around the world is fluent in. It's not English, it's not Finnish, it's C#. Thank you.